really occurred to me that there's a lot of similarities between being inundated with a horde of strangers and with what happens to people when they first go to speak in front of a group of strangers. There's often a similar reaction, especially if you're nervous. There can be a feeling of, oh, there's just me, and there's this wall of strangers. Cold eyes, there's no connection or warmth, you have no credibility. How do you find your way in? How do you establish connection? How do you establish credibility and warmth? How do you get invited back? How do you get invited in to the community, which can seem like closed to a stranger? So it's a two-way thing for both the speaker and the group versus the speaker. They can seem like they're on opposite sides, but these things are always reciprocal relationships. It's always about the two having a conversation together. So that's really the question. How do you create credibility and trust and warmth and connection? So I've always found that one of the easiest ways to learn something new is to just simply observe how successful other people are doing it. So the two people I've chosen are Barack Obama, the former American president, and Nigella Lawson, the English cook and former journalist. Because you always are communicating. Your very presence alone is an incredible, powerful source of communication, because people are making judgments and making thoughts. So anaphora, which is the repetition of a word or a phrase. Remember I said, have you ever wondered? And others you do not, and others you do not, and others you do not. That's called anaphora. And Barack Obama is particularly good at doing this. And I'm also going to be talking about something called the rule of three. And that's just a classic thing in our society that we use. We like threes. Threes are easy to remember. We even do things like 1, 2, 3. A, B, C. Long, long, long ago in a far, far, far land. So we use a lot of repetition of three. It's got a familiar and soothing cadence, which is kind of like storytelling. But also I think it's significant that it's about what we can grasp with our minds as well. We can hold on to that. And we're also going to be looking at using more personal conversational language. Again, both Nigella and Barack are wonderful at being able to make you feel as if they're speaking directly to you. So I'll talk a little bit about how to do that. And then in terms of body language, we're going to be looking at large lighthouse gestures. Large lighthouse gestures, that's pretty easy to understand what that means. Having a relaxed, open body, and then making eye-to-eye direct contact, which doesn't mean the Byron Bay 3-minute hug, by the way. Deeply gazing at one another, we won't be doing that today. I know I said it would be interactive, but we won't be going that far. You have to do a private workshop with me to do that. I'd like you to think about, who do you admire? Who do you listen to? What qualities do they embody? Sometimes it's useful to think about the opposite. Who gets your hackles up? Who do you find you get this strong emotional reaction, but you just somehow just keep listening? What is it they're doing? How is it they're communicating? How are they hooking you in? Whether it's for good or for bad, they're still hooking you. What is it they're doing? So have a little think about that. And so I'm going to ask for a volunteer, maybe two. So would somebody be willing to, Zani?
I've got this. I'm drawn to Justine Clark from Play School. Every time I see her on Play School.
I really love watching Russell Brand's podcast, video blog. Like, I just think he's a genius at like just being completely honest. Like, he comes across as like he doesn't put on any sense of that he's holding stuff back about his flaws, as well as examining the flaws of the world. Yes, and then his ability to articulate that with such fluid dexterity, it's just completely mesmerising.
He's not selling you anything.
No.
Yeah. Or an idea maybe. But
yeah, but like it's non-biased.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, isn't it? That showing your flaws full-fledged is like a vulnerability, but the flip side is also the strength.
So I can't really articulate it anymore.
Well, but you have articulated it well, and we do understand exactly what you mean. And it's a really important point that when a speaker is so self-oriented, there is no room for anyone else. But isn't the point of speaking about everybody else? Isn't that why you're speaking? Every time you open your mouth, it is because you have something to say, something to communicate to other people. The emphasis is on the other, not on yourself. And there's nothing gets people's back up more quickly when there's no room for them in the conversation. That's why conversation. So it's a fabulous device for slowly bringing people from one place to another. And I just did that in a really small way in my self-introduction, where I said, some speakers have you hang on their every word. Short, hang on their every word, one activity. And then I said, you immediately trust and believe. That's 2. And then lastly, how some speakers inspire you to ask for their card, to work with them, and to connect you with something bigger. That's 3. So I deliberately made it bigger to kind of draw you along, to keep you thinking, to create engagement into the possibilities. So it's a really useful device, and it looks a lot more subtle than anaphora. You could possibly use it at a party. Maybe. I'm not totally sure about that. Personal language, making things very personal. I always feel that Nigella's particularly good at that because she has that common touch. Actually, Barack Obama does it well. He manages to balance the 2 beautifully. But with Nigella, and she used to be a journalist, remember? So that's why she's so skilled with words. And at first it can look all very like she's this lovely, attractive, slightly, I don't really care about what other people do, I just do it my way. And that's attractive because she's inviting, again, flaws. But what it does is it brings you down to going, she's just like us.
Yeah.
She doesn't have time either. Oh, so maybe I could do it too. So when she says, she leans forward conversationally in. She does a little eye flick just to make sure you're still watching. And she says, great hair move. I don't know about you, but I just don't have time to mash my own potatoes. Telegraphing large gestures. So I've been doing that quite a bit today, and you've noticed that when I've been speaking, I'm moving them. Again, particularly if you're being filmed or people can only see the top half of you, remember the eye tracks movement really quickly. So when you're speaking, if you just say, it was a really big fish, so big I've never caught such a big fish, it doesn't have as much impact as you saying, it was a big fish. It was big. So I adjusted my feet, I moved my hands, but then I went even further because we'll see that and it underscores and gives weight to and credibility to your mere words, which are really just sound. We'll sometimes simplify things into a clear gesture. It's like a relief, a salve to the spirit quite often, where we just go, oh, I get it. I get what she's saying. Cuts through. You cut through the fluff. Staying a little longer and looking directly into people's eyes. When you stay that little bit longer, what you're really saying is, I really care about you and I really care that you hear what I'm saying. And I'm not going to run away or diminish myself or my words. I'm staying right here and I'm going to watch my words land on your face so that I can actually see whether you've got them, which keeps you present and focused and real. It keeps you in the moment, and it really generates credibility and trust and rapport. So then what you get is one real person talking to a whole lot of other real people, and you have connection, you have trust, you have rapport, you have warmth, you have credibility. It's really not hard when you know how to do it. It's a mix of both the verbal and body language. And it's very easy to learn simply by watching how other people who do it well, watch how they do it. Copy kind of like a suit. Try it on for size. Keep the bits that work, discard the bits that don't. Because above all, you need to be authentic. You need to be yourself. You need to be real. And sometimes that's a process that does take a few years. Geraldine Barkworth from Goddess of Public Speaking. Thank you.